I'm Dr. Andreza Aruska de Souza Santos, and I'm the director of the King's Brazil Institute. I am a political scientist. I did political science in my undergrad, and I was working with public policies in Brazil. To be more specific, I was working with the fight against hunger in Brazil, like social policies. And it really puzzled me, for example, how do you find the extreme poor in Brazil? So you design a policy to give cash to the poorest people, but then you face the problem that the very poorest don't have an ID, they don't have a bank account. So how do you locate them? How do you make sure that this cash that you want to transfer to the poorest will reach them? Who are the intermediators between the program on a national level and then these people who live on a local level? So I was very interested in understanding more about the design of the public policy, but then the implementation of it. And from a government level where I was, I couldn't really answer all these questions. So I thought I should go in academia, but not only in academia, I thought about doing ethnographic research, really doing field work to find out more about the nuances of, the places where the politics then happen. So that was it. Then when I decided that I want to understand more about politics, but from ground level, then I started studying subnational politics. So Brazil has 5,570 cities, and I really wanted to understand more about this local governance of this place. So I wanted to start to study cities, citizenship, and politics on this very local level. Then I became very interested in these topics related to the politics, especially the politics of non-politicians like community leaders and community associations, and then I really devoted myself to this topic, especially in Brazil. From this interest in subnational politics and studying cities, I also did a master's that took me to South Africa, Germany, and India. And I got a joint degree, so I could also study politics and study society with a global south perspective. And then I did a PhD with a lot of ethnographic field work. So King's has this School of Global Affairs and the King's Brazil Institute. It feels a very good fit considering my background, because I have studied Brazil and studied subnational politics in Brazil, but I have also studied Brazil from India, I studied Brazil from South Africa, studied Brazil from Germany, and from the UK, from other places. So as much as I'm interested in studying Brazil, I'm also interested in studying how Brazil dialogues and has this position in relation to other countries in the world. And so being able to continue my studies in Brazil and now direct the King's Brazil Institute, but without ever losing sight of the other regions, and Brazil is a global player, is what brought me to King's. I became very interested in this subnational politics, particularly studying cities from political economy point of view. What I realized that there are many good instruments for governance, where civil society can participate in the design of policies. They can really say which policy they want to prioritize. They can discuss how to mitigate some factors that, in industry that brings more pollution, such as mining. How do you mitigate those aspects? And so on. So you could hear affected communities and so on and so forth. But what I studied in the ground is that despite these very good instruments that you have in law, when you put that in action, it's extremely different, because when you have a very high economic dependency, then there is a lot of self-censorship and intimidation, because people don't want to really confront the biggest economic power in cities, especially when it's very small or medium towns where everybody knows everybody else. So making enemies can really disrupt some social networks, which brings economic benefits. So studying subnational politics actually opened a variety of some research projects that I'm looking at right now. So one is that looking at company towns and what strong economic dependency can generate politically amongst individuals that feel a sense of self-censorship, and despite the opportunity to participate in the politics of their city, they might prefer to silence because it has less costs than publicly voicing their concerns locally. Another project that I'm looking at, because COVID-19 in Brazil didn't have a national coordination, and then every city had their own NPIs, they are non-pharmaceutical interventions, so cities decided when they would close non-essential activities, when they would reopen, and then to have these extremely pulverized policies where each of the more than 5,000 cities in Brazil would have a different level of COVID policy led to a massive data set to really see when and what each city was doing. So I was curating these data sets. I create a partnership with lots of epidemiologists and other scientists. So we published several papers, and we are still publishing on public health in Brazil, given this particular situation of very fragmented policies that Brazil had during COVID. I think what evolved in my research was that I moved from ethnography to look at big data and do more comparison again. So I guess I started as a political scientist, I became an ethnographer, and then I moved back to zoom out again to see repetition and other similar realities in Brazil to then be able to compare, to contrast, and then also work with impact cases and hopefully offer some results that then city mayors and community leaders could gain from our results. I think one of the biggest challenge in research right now is also to be able to do long-term research. I think when you work on a topic and when you want to, especially studying cities, and there are so many of those in Brazil, and you need to understand the particularities of each place, but also the similarities across, and do a lot of comparison and create collaborations with scientists and from other fields and also from other locations, then we are looking at a funding landscape that is not always looking at the nuance of this kind of research that is long-term, that takes time to produce results, that needs lots of collaborations and jump between various disciplines. So I think this is one of the challenges, is how do you translate research which is always specific to calls that are necessarily general because they need to attend a broad level of scholarship. So I think this is one of the challenges. However, I think research on COVID-19, research on climate change, and all the big challenges that we are facing nowadays, they are helpful to show that it's not only no longer possible to study a topic from one discipline only. We see with climate change, we see with COVID-19 that this is politics, this is about public health, this is about gender studies, this is about environmental issues, and so on and so forth. So bringing on board a variety of disciplines is becoming more obvious that this is the way forward. It is still a challenge, but I think we are getting there.